In Bloodborne, there are many different attire sets, each with its own description and unique design. Of these, there are 3 different categories that differentiate them. The hunter sets, most of which involve heavy jackets and waistcoats, Victorian inspired for the most part and practical. Many of these are associated with the most integral characters. The student, church, choir, and Yahar'gul sets, which are inspired by various school and ecclesiastical robes. The Cainhurst sets, which are more heavily inspired by medieval armor and noble finery. Although this isn't confirmed and is mainly speculative in nature, the modern designer who is the most likely candidate to have inspired many of these designs is Alexander McQueen. Throughout his career, these designs have been considered controversial and shocking. In spite of this, he expressed that the purpose of every piece he created was intended to empower the wearer, the vast majority being women. In spite of this, he also found it important to display the viciousness in how women are perceived by society. He'll show models who appear to be in bondage or abused, but also equip them with very physical armor to symbolize their resilience to overcome. At the end of his Fall/Winter 2002 show, after hordes of models walked into the runway in various states of bondage, a heroine glided onto the catwalk, clad in a mask and tricorn hat. If you look closely, you'll see that the flowing nature of this outfit and hat clearly resemble the choir set. Although the color scheme is different, the silhouette is remarkably similar. The choir set, like all church clothing in-game, is inspired by the student uniform, which reads, "Uniform of the students of Bergenworth, a bygone institute of learning. Features a thick cape. The Healing Church has its roots in Bergenworth, and naturally borrows heavily from its uniform design. The focus not on knowledge or thought, but on pure pretension would surely bring Master Willem to despair, if only he knew." This is the basis for all church garb, whose grandest and arguably most pretentious design is the choir set. Unlike Alexander McQueen's heroic vision for his similar design, the choir is a secret sect of the Healing Church, which committed unspeakable acts of experimentation on the people, especially the orphan children of Yharnam. As this is typical in history, those who are seen as sacred are often steeped in illusion. The church and its executioners in Bloodborne have one great perceived enemy, Cainhurst. To be fair, Cainhurst has their share of suspicious dealings, especially when you consider blood drags an arguably elitist structure of their society. The ire drawn against them by the church is more of an attempt to scapegoat them as a whole than to actually vanquish something vile from the world. From your talks with Alfred, Cainhurst seems like a place that is rife with villainy. However, once you get there, the first sound you hear is of weeping women, the first images of forlorn servants, and the shades of the noble ladies who were executed. The story unravels, and you come to the realization that the executioners invaded their home and slaughtered them, even the women who had no ties with the knights or the Queen's chosen hunters. This ties in perfectly with McQueen's trend of displaying an ugly perception that shocks you at first, but when you search for truth, what you see is very different from how it appears. Of the hunters associated with Cainhurst, one of the most prevalent pieces of armor that they wear is a fencing mask. This is worn on the Cainhurst armor as a proud standard. The Cainhurst helmet has a description that reads, "Silver helmet worn by the royal guards who protect Annalise, Queen of the Vilebloods at Cainhurst Castle. This paper-thin silver armor is said to deflect blood of ill intent, and is what allows the royal guards to capture prey for their beloved queen, so that one day she may bear a child of blood." After the battle with Logarius, you discover their queen, Annalise. She wears a similar head cover, but unlike her knights, she is imprisoned by it. Nonetheless, she commands your respect. A perfect parallel is seen in Alexander McQueen's 1998 Joan collection, based on how society perceived Joan of Arc as a hellish emissary rather than a holy one. The character of Joan is reminiscent of Annalise. As a historical figure, she was a strong leader at the head of an army, yet she was perceived in her time as an enemy of the church. Unfortunately, she was burned at the stake for heresy. In McQueen's vision, I interpret the imagery to be how the people in her era perceived Joan. It's clear that many societies are threatened by the idea of an ambitious woman. Often, great lengths are taken to silence them. Joan and Annalise are no exception, which is why this correlation is fascinating to me. When you take into consideration McQueen's vision of Joan, both wear the tight, confining fencing masks, and are both viciously punished by their respective churches. There are a couple honorable mentions that are visually similar here. The first is a piece from McQueen's 2004 collection, The Night's Queen. Although not identical, the texture and cool lighting surrounding the model is reminiscent of Queen Yarnum's solemn, statuesque silhouette. For the most part, their relationship is visual only, but a striking one. The second is this piece here from the Savage Beauty exhibit, made of a billowing long dress and a blobby head, similar in nature to the Patience of the Research Hall. I immediately think of Adeline in particular, who the character gets to know as you progress throughout her side quest. Of the many unique designs in this game, all are deeply inspired by history, fantasy, and utility. It's possible that Alexander McQueen and From Software were both influenced by the same era and clothing concepts as one another, but some of the designs are similar enough that I suspect Miyazaki may have been inspired by the designer. What do you guys think of the similarities? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below, and thank you so much for checking this out. Bye guys.
Hi guys, thank you so much for going to my channel and watching this video. I'm really late to the game on making lore videos in general for Dark Souls and Bloodborne, but I'm a huge fan of a lot of different YouTubers and they really help me understand and appreciate these games very much. So about myself, I wanted to make this especially because I was a former fashion student and I have a BFA in fine art. I'm also a hobbyist costumer and I was really happy to be able to make a Lady Maria costume last year, which I may show you a couple pictures of in this clip. And I have a huge admiration for Alexander McQueen and his amazing designs, also a genuine love of history. So I know that Alexander McQueen and Bloodborne both were inspired by some of the more violent events in history and some of the darker events in history. So it's possible that they could have simply been inspired by the same stuff. However, I do find quite a few parallels and I definitely wanted to share them with you today. And if I could recommend some art and design books with you today, a lot of the pieces that I found were referenced from Alexander McQueen, Genius of a Generation, this wonderful book right here, as well as the Bloodborne Official Artworks book. This one happens to be an import, but the USA version is coming out this May, so I highly, highly recommend it. It's filled with absolutely stunning, gorgeous art and design from characters, as you can see, to even architectural design and their concepts. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.